Now the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Garrity.
And welcome, everyone, to the Thursday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. Along with Jim Garrity of National Review, I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Good, bad, and crazy martinis for conservatives today, as usual. And Jim, yesterday we said, Hillary Clinton, take a breather. We're not going to talk about you today. I hope you did, Secretary Clinton, because you're in all three martinis today. Good, bad, and crazy, and none of them are particularly good for you. On to the first martini. This from Reuters. Hillary Clinton's family's charities are refiling at least 5 annual tax returns after a Reuters review found errors in how they reported donations from governments and said they may audit other Clinton Foundation returns in case of other errors. For 3 years in a row, beginning in 2010, the Clinton Foundation reported to the IRS that it received zero in funds from foreign and U.S. governments, a dramatic fall-off from the tens of millions of dollars in foreign government contributions reported in preceding years. Those entries were errors, according to the foundation. Several foreign governments continued to give tens of millions of dollars toward the foundation's work on climate change and economic development through this 3-year period. Jim, the taxes filed from 2010 through 2012 or 2013, curious 3-year period where they claimed they didn't have any foreign donations there.
Yeah, what was she doing then, right? It wasn't a job that had to deal with foreign governments, right? I mean, it wasn't that, she was dealing with foreign governments and foreign governments were giving lots of money to the Clinton Foundation, creating the appearance of impropriety and kind of foreshadow that second martini, maybe some actual impropriety. 2 or 3 things jump out about this. One is they said tens of thousands. I believe the actual number of the preceding year was like 128 million.
Wow.
So you go from 128 million to zero. That doesn't seem odd to anybody. Galt's girl on Twitter pointed out, you don't accidentally report zero for 3 straight years. Oh, did we say zero? We meant like $30 million. Sorry, it was a typo. We forgot the 3 and like 6 of the zeros that goes with that. So the utterly implausible. And you're right. And this comes at a particular time where if we had known that the Clinton Foundation was getting tens of billions of dollars from foreign governments, people would have asked a lot of uncomfortable questions about that. One of the things that I think is kind of a good indicator of this, and this goes along with the previous problem with the emails, there's a person from a good government organization who says, look, this kind of an amendment activity for any type of alleged nonprofit or charity, refiling for 3 or 4 years ago is, quote, highly unusual, unquote. They could say, look, we're accountable because, by golly, we fill out the Form 990 like we're supposed to, and that's, what we're obligated to do. Bill Allison, a senior fellow at the Sunlight Foundation, makes a great point. If the numbers keep changing, well, actually, we spent this on this, not that on that, it really defeats the purpose. I mean, they want credit for filling out the forms when everything they fill out in the forms is wrong and not accurate. And no, you don't get credit for disclosure if the information is wrong. So by itself, on an ordinary day, Greg, this would be the biggest headache for Hillary Clinton, but not so sure that it is.
On to the bad martini now, and it's absolutely directly related to this. A lot of people around town kind of rubbing their hands together to see what's in this Clinton cash book by Peter Schweitzer. Well, we're starting to get our first glimpse, and Mrs. Clinton's probably not going to like it. This from the Wall Street Journal. Hillary Clinton's State Department was part of a panel that approved the sale of one of America's largest uranium mines at the same time a foundation controlled by the seller's chairman was making donations to a Clinton family charity. The $610 million sale of 51% of Uranium One to a unit of Rosatom, Russia's state nuclear agency, was approved in 2010 by a U.S. federal committee that assesses the security implications of foreign investments. The State Department, which Mrs. Clinton then ran, is one of its members. Between 2008 and 2012, the Clinton Justra Sustainable Growth Initiative, a project of the Clinton Foundation, received $2.35 million from the Fernwood Foundation, a family charity run by Ian Telfer, chairman of Uranium One, before its sale, according to Canada Revenue Agency records. Jim, so a little bit of having to follow the rabbit trail there, but if this is the tip of the iceberg for the Schweitzer book, this is going to be a real fun ride.
The simplest way of putting it, in kind of a nutshell, is to say, look, here's one of our biggest examples of a quid pro quo. And the Hillary excuse is going to be, look, you can't prove that we made that policy decision just because of the donations. That's going to be there. They're also putting this is a bunch of absurd conspiracy theories. They've done a lot of attacking Schweitzer, attacking the messenger. I mean, this is showing up in the New York Times, and the New York Times took the what Schweitzer said he was working on, went out and did their reports and verified everything, lays it all out in really good detail. For all of the complaining on the right about the New York Times, I think they really brought it on this one. What's kind of astounding is that you're Hillary Clinton and you don't see anything wrong with this. We're going to give Russian, a big, powerful Russian company that is effectively state-run, whether you like it or not. Everything in Russia is effectively state-run, which means it's controlled by Vladimir Putin. Control of about 20% of U.S. uranium production. What could go wrong, huh, Greg? So, anytime you end up doing something like that, this is not a bunch of absurd conspiracy theories. As we said in that last Martini, once you refile your taxes for 5 years, it's not a bunch of absurd conspiracy theories. And so you go through all this, the idea that the investigative reporters of the New York Times are making stuff up in order to help the conservatives. And the only explanation we're going to get from the Hillary folks, she herself obviously is not going to answer any questions about this, is going to be that it's strictly coincidental that the State Department started making the decisions that this Russian company and Vladimir Putin wanted to see right after they made big donations to the Clinton Foundation. We would know that this is all a big coincidence if we could look at her emails, but unfortunately they're all deleted, huh, Greg?
Yeah, big unfortunate coincidence there. So amazing. Well, if you weren't nauseated enough by the politically incestuous allegations we've talked about in the first two martinis, let's get to the third one here. That's from the Washington Examiner. 22 of the 37 corporations nominated for a prestigious State Department award, and 6 of the 8 ultimate winners, while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, were also donors to the Clinton Family Foundation. The published donor records of the Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton Foundation don't give exact dates or amounts of its contributors, but it is possible to create a general timeline for when many of the corporations donated and when they were either nominated or selected for the award. Cisco was the biggest foundation contributor, nominated in 2009, giving the Clinton charity between $1 and $5 million. The company then won the award in 2010 when 8 of the 12 finalists and 2 of the 3 winners had donated to the foundation. And it goes on and on, Coca-Cola, Tom's Shoes, Tiger Machinery, Intel, and others along the way. So, Jim, talk about the game being rigged.
Now, this one is almost like the dessert martini, because on the one hand, effectively auctioning off State Department awards are kind of smaller potatoes compared to, say, giving Vladimir Putin 20% of control of 20% of the U.S. uranium industry. And obviously, I think the idea of hiding foreign donations on your tax forms, that's a very big deal as well. This one just looks cheap and chintzy. We don't have a State Department, so you can just make your friends feel good. I don't know if there's necessarily any large cash reward, a little bit of prestige to be on the State Department, really good guy. And it's just kind of silly and ridiculous that they could do something like this. And one, she didn't think anybody was going to notice. And then two, this kind of irritating sense that she basically saw the State Department as a kind of a branch office of the Clinton Foundation. And this was part of the donor reward program. This is not what the purpose of the U.S. government is not supposed to help Hillary Clinton. Again, this one probably in terms of consequence isn't as big, but indicates how cheap they are and how much they were willing to abuse their office to in order to get money in their own pockets.
Amazing. I just want to clarify that at no point did Jim Garrity donate to the American Conservative Union or CPAC in order to get his Conservative Journalist of the Year award. He actually earned it. So
yeah. Also, don't mention that, though, because then they'll be like, well, Jim, you haven't. I mean, you don't have a good excuse now, right? So, one of the things that's really been frustrating about the discussion of the Clintons is, this allegation from the Schweitzer book and other reporting we've seen indicating that the Clintons were effectively, it was a favor factory, that they were selling the kind of policies, not on huge issues, but on mid-level things that were very important to, say, Russian uranium companies, that they were selling the State Department decisions to the highest bidder. And everyone's like, oh my goodness, what on earth are you possibly talking? But except the thing is that they sold out the Lincoln bedroom back in the mid-'90s. And back at the end of Clinton's presidency, they effectively sold a pardon to Mark Rich because Mark Rich's wife wrote this giant check to the library. So they've been auctioning off government services to the highest bidder their entire careers. And yet it keeps happening. And for some reason, it's like they've got the neuralizer from Men in Black, where they just go, and we all kind of forget about it. And then this next allegation comes along, and everybody's like, well, we got to give her the benefit of the doubt. We don't know for certain they would do something like this. I'm sorry, have you paid any attention to the Clintons since they arrived on the scene? So, Anyway, that's where we are today. It'd be interesting to see at some point, does this start sticking?
I think it depends on how many stories Schweitzer's got. It's a 186-page book, and if this is indicative of the rest of what he's got there, it's going to be pretty hard for them to claim that they're all just amazing coincidences.
In that case, we're on page 2, I think, of the Schweitzer book.
Buckle up, everyone.
More to go. If I'm him, do that Breitbart James O'Keefe strategy of one video a day,
Yeah.
And each time I say, it's an isolated incident, a one-time mistake, and then whoop, there's another one. We will see. But again, what are the odds that these are the only things Hillary Clinton did wrong while at state and involving the Clinton Foundation?
Well, we know that there's plenty more she did wrong. Benghazi is right at the top of the list there. So Mrs. Clinton definitely didn't get the day off today. And if there's more in this book that's like what we learned today, she's going to be talked about here a lot more in the next coming days. So have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. And be sure to tune in again on Friday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.